Have you ever stopped to think how a simple glance can change the fate of two lives? Sometimes it all begins in a silent instant, a moment no one notices, yet one that carries the weight of an entire story. What you're about to discover might surprise you because on this particular night, a soldier who had just returned from war still carrying in the shadows of his mind battles. He'd never told anyone about encountered something he hadn't expected. A little boy alone, curled up on an empty street beneath the dim, flickering light of a lamppost that seemed to tremble along with him. Stay with me until the end, because this meeting wasn't just coincidence. It was a calling. The soldier walked aimlessly, trying to reconnect with a world that felt distant. Too many, he'd returned home. To him, the war still echoed in his footsteps. The city's silence contrasted with the noise still pounding inside him, memories that insisted on returning, recollections of pain, loss, and impossible decisions. He was the kind of soldier marked by invisible scars, the kind of man who tries to smile to show he's fine, while inside, he's merely trying to survive his own past. Have you ever felt this way? That sensation of being here, yet trapped somewhere else? It was in this state of mind that he noticed the boy, a small, fragile silhouette, nearly lost in the darkness. The soldier stopped instinctively, as if something deep within him recognized that fear. The boy wasn't crying or asking for help. He just stared at the ground, as if he'd learned that waiting is dangerous. There was something in his eyes, a silent plea, a familiar pain that made the soldier's heart clench in a way it hadn't since the front lines. The street was empty, the wind icy, yet this encounter felt strangely inevitable, as if two broken stories had been guided precisely to that point. The soldier approached slowly, with the same caution he'd used crossing a minefield. He knew that wounded people don't trust easily. He knew that the fear of an abandoned child could run as deep as the fear of a soldier who has seen too much. And as he walked toward the boy, flashes of memory sparked like lightning. Faces, long nights, missions that went wrong. It was as if this child had opened a door he'd tried so hard to keep locked for so long. "It's okay," he whispered, more to himself than to the boy. And the child lifted his eyes for the first time. Large, frightened eyes, filled with questions no one should carry so young. That look was the trigger. What happened there shook everything the soldier believed was under control. It was as if he stood before his own lost self from many years ago, waiting for someone to reach out a hand. Stay with me until the end, because the story that begins here isn't just about a soldier and a boy. It's about inner scars, unexpected reunions, lives transformed by pain, and how sometimes God places exactly the right person in your path at the most unlikely moment. With every step, something greater began to form, something neither the soldier nor the boy could have imagined. And as the two observed each other in silence, something began to shift. An invisible thread connected their stories, pulling them toward a destiny still waiting to unfold. And it's precisely at this point that everything truly begins. The soldier stood there before the boy, feeling the weight of a silence that spoke louder than any words. It was strange. This child seemed to understand a kind of loneliness the soldier himself had carried since the war. And when the boy dropped his shoulders, as if finally allowing someone to truly see him, the soldier's heart nearly stopped for a moment. There was something profoundly human in that instant, something beyond quick explanations. It was as if two different pains recognized each other, as if life were offering a rare chance at healing, even if he didn't yet know how to handle it. As he watched the boy, the soldier felt an unexpected urge to speak, not about the past, not about orders or battles, but about this feeling of finding someone when everything seems lost. Maybe you've experienced something like this, the moment a stranger awakens something you didn't even know you needed. If this resonates with you, leave a comment below about what moved you most so far. Sometimes, sharing what we feel creates the very support we're missing in life. And who knows, your experience might help someone going through something similar. The soldier took a deep breath, realizing he stood at a decisive moment. It wasn't just about helping the boy. It was also about facing his own shadows. And as you follow this story, remember that every gesture of support here on the channel matters. When you like the video, for example, you're showing the platform that this kind of emotional, human, and transformative content deserves to reach more people. It's a small action, but it helps bring this message to someone who might need to hear it today. And if you feel this narrative speaks to you, if these unexpected encounters and stories of resilience touch your heart, please subscribe to the channel. Your presence here isn't just a number. It's part of a community that grows because everyone brings their own experiences, perspectives, and sensitivity. Your participation is what helps this channel grow and reach more people, offering comfort, reflection, and strength to those silently fighting their own battles. The soldier then took another step toward the boy, as if something inside him had finally found courage. He didn't know what he'd say or how this meeting would change them both, but in that instant, the air felt lighter, as if the world had paused to listen to what would come next. And it was in that silence that something began to stir within the boy, to a tiny, almost imperceptible gesture that revealed this night still had much to show. The soldier remained before the boy for a few more seconds, yet inside, he was far from that quiet street. His mind, marked by memories that defied time, had already dragged him back to places where pain had no name, only weight. It was always like this when something triggered those buried memories. Just a gesture, a scent, a glance, and everything returned as if it were happening all over again. He tried to steady his breathing, keep his body firm, but this inner battle was unseen by anyone. It was the kind of war that earned no medals and ended with no peace treaties. It was the war that continued even after the uniform was tucked away in a closet. The hidden truth about soldiers who return home is that they never come back whole. People see the reunion hugs, the smiles in photos, the relieved families, but they don't see what happens in the middle of the night when he wakes up gasping, reminding himself he's safe. They don't see the tension in his muscles when someone raises their voice, or notice how he scans every space as if he must always map escape routes. That mindset doesn't just vanish because the country declares the war over. It stays like a second skin. When walking through the city streets, he often thought all he wanted was to feel normal again. Just that. To hear laughter without suspicion, see children running without imagining danger, sleep without reliving painful scenes. But reintegration is never as simple as many assume. Society moves at its own pace, hurried, noisy, and he felt out of place. Like a puzzle piece that no longer fits, his journey had become intimate and silent, filled with unnoticed decisions. Getting out of bed or staying a little longer, opening the door or waiting for his hands to stop trembling, trying to smile or just keeping a neutral face to avoid attention. It was in this emotional landscape that the encounter with the boy struck like an unexpected blow. For some reason, that fragile gaze awakened in the soldier something he thought he'd lost, the ability to feel. Empathy without fear. Deep in his mind, a silent realization formed. Perhaps this boy was carrying his own war. Different but equally heavy. Recognizing this stirred a responsibility he couldn't explain. It was as if life were asking him to use what he'd learned through pain to protect someone he didn't even know. As he tried to approach, he remembered the nights he walked alone after returning home. No one understood why he preferred the streets to his own house, but it was on those streets that his mind could settle, where he could breathe without feeling he had to play the role of someone strong all the time. Back then, he didn't even know if he wanted help. Silence felt safer than any conversation, and seeing the boy curled up there brought that memory into sharp focus. Maybe the boy was going through that same phase where fear speaks louder than words. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the transformation that occurs when two pains meet is powerful. It's not something forced. It emerges slowly, like when a glowing ember finds a cooled one and reignites a bit of warmth. The soldier knew this situation demanded care. He knew any sudden movement might scare the boy, and he also knew that sometimes when someone is wounded, kindness must come before questions. He tried to speak, but his voice faltered for a second, not from weakness, but because it had been so long since he'd emotionally connected with someone. It was as if his own soul were rearranging itself, making space for a new responsibility, and that stirred something deep within him. In that instant, the world around him seemed to slow down. The cold wind brushed the soldier's face, bringing a strange mix of alertness and calm, as if a new chapter of his life were about to open without warning. His footsteps echoed softly on the pavement, and the boy finally lifted his head. Their eyes met for a second that felt far too long, far too intense. In that instant, something inside the soldier both broke and mended at once. It was impossible to explain. It was like seeing his own vulnerability mirrored in another life. This meeting held a force he didn't yet understand, but he already sensed it would change something within him. From that point forward, everything would begin to take shape: decisions, revelations, understandings that only arise when demarked stories meet at the exact moment. They need each other most. Comment below. This makes sense to me. The street was so silent it seemed to hold its breath. The wind dragged dry leaves across the asphalt like faint whispers trying to warn of something no one else could hear. The lamppost flickered with its weak, intermittent light, giving the impression that time itself hesitated to move forward. And right there, in that almost forgotten setting, the soldier stopped without fully understanding why. His steps slowed on their own, as if something called to him from within the silence. And then he saw the boy curled up against the wall, hugging his knees, trying to hide his face. It wasn't just cold. It wasn't just fear. It was the kind of fragility that automatically triggers a protective instinct, especially in someone trained for years to react to danger before even identifying it. The soldier watched for a few seconds, as if trying to decipher that small presence on the sidewalk. In that instant, his past didn't matter, nor the inner scars he carried, nor the silent battle he fought every night trying to sleep. Before him lay a hidden truth that pierced through any emotional armor. No one should face the darkness alone. And maybe that's why his steps moved forward without hesitation, driven by a mindset. The war had never fully erased, despite everything. The transformation he'd so long sought within himself seemed to begin right there. In a simple, almost instinctive gesture, but one heavy with meaning, he approached slowly, avoiding any sudden movements that might make the boy feel cornered. The empty street amplified every detail, every breath, every delicate motion. And in that brief silence between steps, the soldier noticed something unexpected, his own inner voice growing louder. That same voice he'd tried to silence for months, the voice of his mind's backstage, of memories that didn't bleed but hurt like open wounds. He took a deep breath. He knew this situation wasn't just about helping someone. It was about confronting another fragment of himself. When he got close enough, the boy lifted his eyes, and in that frightened, distrustful gaze, the soldier recognized something all too familiar: the feeling of being utterly at the mercy of the world. That fragility born when the world feels too big, too cruel, too fast. There, in that silent revelation, was something only those who've walked through their own abyss can identify. The soldier crouched down to the boy's level, careful not to appear as a towering shadow beneath the flickering lamplight. And then he spoke with a calm he didn't know he still possessed. The words came out soft, simple, direct. He didn't ask what happened, or try to pry for explanations. He simply offered presence, the one thing often more powerful than any decision or speech. The boy hesitated but didn't pull away. It was as if this stranger, with tired eyes and steady posture, radiated a safety that came not from physical size, but from the weight of his journey. And in that instant, the soldier felt the night's cold differently. It wasn't just the weather, it was the memory of so many nights when he himself had wished someone would stop, look at him, and notice what lay behind the practiced smile. That's why this scene impacted him so deeply. Deep down, he knew he stood before a kind of mirror, small, fragile, yet revealing. And it was impossible to ignore as the lamppost flickered again, illuminating the boy's face. Something inside the soldier opened a little more. He realized how life creates encounters that seem accidental, but actually guide us toward transformations that have been waiting for just a spark. It wasn't coincidence. It was a calling. It was one of those moments that pierce the soul with both power and gentleness, showing that even on empty nights, stories are about to cross paths. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because there are moments when life insists on reminding us that no one walks a journey alone. By kneeling before the boy, the soldier wasn't just offering help, he was recognizing his own humanity, which he'd so often tried to hide. It was as if, on that cold sidewalk, two different stories met at the same point of vulnerability. And that perception changes everything. It shifts your mindset, your decisions, even how you see yourself. He saw the boy tremble slightly, whether from cold or fear. He couldn't tell, Without saying much, the soldier removed his heavy coat and draped it over the boy's small shoulders. The boy said nothing, but this time, his eyes didn't look away. In that second, the soldier realized the true impact of that gesture. It wasn't about warming his body, it was about warming something that was nearly extinguished within. And that reveals something many people ignore. Sometimes, a single simple act carries enough strength to stop someone from giving up on themselves. The street remained empty, but the silence was no longer the same. It was as if the entire scene were witnessing this improbable encounter, holding within its hidden layers a meaning that only reveals itself to those who truly pay attention. The soldier felt a shiver not from the cold, but from deep recognition. He knew this moment would unfold further, that something here was part of a greater cycle, something about to guide him toward an understanding he hadn't sought but desperately needed. And right here is where I want you to take a deep breath and truly feel the scene, because everything happening here carries a power we rarely notice in the rush of daily life. The encounter, the vulnerability, the protection, the courage to approach. All of this belongs to the same invisible thread that connects lives, heals old wounds, and makes space for new decisions. If this part touched you in any way, comment below. I'm on this journey too. The boy's breathing was short, irregular, as if each inhale required calculated effort to keep from collapsing entirely. The soldier noticed this the moment their eyes met. It wasn't an ordinary look, it was a silent, almost desperate plea. Restrained by the shame only someone who's known hardship can understand. It was as if the boy had been trying to be strong alone for far too long, and now, suddenly, someone finally saw him. The soldier felt that pierce his chest not as a shock, but as a long dormant memory someone had just awakened. The boy's clothes were dirty not with the grime of childhood play, but with the wear of someone who'd been out there too long. There were marks on his knees, accumulated dust, torn sleeves. His hands trembled not just from cold, but from fear. The kind of fear that makes no noise, doesn't cry out, but settles deep inside like a shadow no one notices anymore. And that heavy silence made the soldier ache bitterly, because he knew how to recognize someone trying to disappear within themselves. He stepped closer, watching how the boy avoided eye contact whenever he felt observed, a common reaction from someone who's faced too much rejection. The soldier thought about this as he remembered his own return. Nights spent trying to fit back into the world, yet feeling everything was out of place. That strange sensation of being both present and absent at once. And now, right before him, this boy seemed to live that same disconnection. Physically present, but mentally far away. Leaves kept rolling down the street, and the lamppost's weak light cast small shadows across the boy's face. Each shadow seemed to tell a piece of his story. Yet neither of them had enough words to explain it all. That sparked a quiet curiosity in the soldier, a nearly instinctive need to understand what was happening, not out of idle curiosity, but because he sensed that silence concealed a hidden truth, something that could change everything that night. When the soldier gently asked if the boy was alone, the child only nodded almost imperceptibly. It was as if even answering felt too hard, his throat tight, voice absent, fear taking over. Sensing this, the soldier didn't press further. He knew there's a line between wanting to help and intruding. There's a fine boundary between care and pressure. And on that cold sidewalk, where time seemed to slow, that boundary had to be respected with gentleness. The boy clutched tightly the coat the soldier had placed over his shoulders, as if it were the only real protection he'd received in a very long time. And that brought an uncomfortable revelation. Sometimes, life leaves someone so vulnerable that even the smallest gesture becomes immense. The soldier observed this with a mix of worry and responsibility. He felt within himself a silent commitment he hadn't planned to take on, yet one that imposed itself through the power of the moment. The empty street seemed to keep their encounter as a secret, as if the night itself held expectations for what would happen, as if something greater were about to unfold from this silent exchange. The boy looked at the soldier again, and this time his gaze was slightly firmer, still shy, still fearful, but more present. It was the look of someone trying to believe they might be safe, and that attempt, however fragile, was too powerful to ignore. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because there's something essential in this scene that many people overlook. When the soldier looked at that boy, he didn't just see someone who was cold. He saw an open wound not on the body, but in the soul. A wound that doesn't bleed or show on clothes, but eats away from within. And it's precisely this kind of silent pain that shapes someone's mindset. It influences decisions, thoughts, fears, and even how a person sees themselves. The hidden truth is that there are pains that don't scream, yet have enough impact to shift the entire direction of a life. The boy stayed quiet, clutching the coat as if trying to build a barrier between himself and the world. The soldier felt that every second there carried weight. It was as if he were witnessing the backstage of a story no one else knew, a story made of absences, sleepless nights, unanswered questions. He tried to imagine what had brought the boy here, but it was impossible without the child speaking. Still, one thing was undeniable. That night had become a crossroads of journeys, where two broken lives met at the same point of fragility. The wind grew stronger, carrying a cold that pierced through any layer of clothing. The boy curled up again, and the soldier instinctively moved slightly closer, not to intrude, but to show he was truly there with genuine intent. That made the boy look up once more, and in that instant, the soldier realized he stood before an important choice, not a practical one, but an emotional one, because some decisions happen in silence, without words, yet have the power to define the path ahead. It was clear the boy needed help, but also clear he needed to trust before accepting anything. The soldier knew this. He also knew trust isn't born from explanations, but from presence. So he stayed patient, demanding nothing, just offering calm. And that simple act made the air around them feel lighter, as if the night itself were making space for something new to happen. Gradually, the boy's breathing grew more regular. The trembling lessened. His gaze found focus. It was nearly imperceptible, but to the soldier who knew the details of human behavior in crisis, it spoke volumes. It was like watching a small flame reignite after nearly going out. There's something deeply symbolic in that, and perhaps it's exactly this kind of revelation that transforms ordinary encounters into moments that last forever. The sidewalk remained cold, but the internal climate between them changed. It was as if a thin thread of connection began forming right there. And when that happens, when the pain-marked stories recognize each other, it's impossible not to feel that something greater is about to unfold. The soldier looked at the boy once more, with that peaceful seriousness of someone who understands certain glances speak louder than any dialogue. The boy clutched the coat one last time, as if gathering the courage to finally say something. And in that exact, suspended second of the night, the story began gaining a new rhythm within the silence. It wasn't yet a conversation. It wasn't yet a revelation. But it was the beginning of something that needed to happen. If this part moved you, comment below. This makes sense to me. The air seemed suspended as the soldier took another step forward, slow enough not to frighten, firm enough to show he wouldn't leave. The boy watched everything with a look mingling alertness and hope, like someone who'd waited too long for the worst and no longer knew how to react when something good approached. The soldier noticed that hesitation, and it struck deep within him, awakening memories he wished he'd buried. It was strange how, in just seconds, to such different stories, began touching in a way neither expected. He didn't say much, just a soft, genuine, almost whispered, "Are you okay?" But the boy took several moments to process the question, as if trying to decide whether this concern was real or just another fleeting illusion. The boy's hands still trembled, but when the soldier repeated the gesture of draping the coat over his shoulders, the child finally let his body relax by a millimeter. And for someone so distrustful, that millimeter was immense. The soldier lowered himself slightly, not to invade space, but to meet the boy's gaze at eye level. He knew that sometimes being on the same level makes all the difference in building trust. It was almost like saying, "I'm not above you, I'm with you." And that, in itself, carried an impact he knew well, because he'd once been someone who desperately needed to feel exactly that. The boy opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out, just a choked sound, as if his words were trapped behind an internal wall built through too many hard nights. The soldier recognized that blockage. He recognized the silent struggle to speak. And in recognizing it, something inside him twisted. He felt that old coldness he thought he'd overcome long ago. It wasn't the cold of night, it was the cold of memory. Nights when he himself had no one to ask for help. Internal battles fought after returning home to find the world hadn't waited for him or slowly. The boy gave a slight nod. It wasn't exactly an answer, but it was enough for the soldier to understand the boy wanted help even if he couldn't ask for it. The silence that settled wasn't uncomfortable, it was profound. The kind of silence that reveals more than it hides. A backstage silence where true emotions begin to surface. It was as if each breath the boy took carried a fragmented story, waiting to be rebuilt. And the soldier sensed this with a sensitivity he didn't know he still had. He tried asking the boy's name, but once again no answer came, only a quick, frightened glance filled with hidden truths that couldn't cross his lips. And right then, the soldier felt something inside him pulled back into the past, the memory of when he, too, couldn't speak, when people asked how he was, and he'd answer fine, even as his mind lay in ruins. And it was impossible not to see the mirror between them. To people fighting the same kind of shadow, just at different life stages, the soldier took a deep breath, controlling the wave of emotion threatening to break through an internal dam he'd kept sealed for years. He didn't want to show anything that might scare the boy, so he kept his voice low, steady, almost therapeutic. He said he was there, had no rush, and the boy didn't need to speak until he felt safe. And when he said that, the boy blinked more slowly, as if absorbing those words and trying to believe them. The soldier noticed a subtle shift in the boy's body. His shoulder relaxed slightly. His breathing eased. His gaze grew more present. Small signs, yes, but signs of transformation. The street remained empty, the lamppost still flickering almost symbolically, as if lighting just enough for this encounter to happen. The cold sidewalk was the improvised stage for something neither could have imagined. And in that small space between what the boy felt and what the soldier remembered, an invisible bridge formed, a silent emotional connection neither verbalized, but both understood. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because there's a point many miss if they've never lived something like this. When two pain-marked people meet, there's a silent, almost instinctive recognition. The soldier saw in the boy not just someone needing help, but someone carrying a void similar to his own. And it's this kind of connection that shifts a person's mindset, not through force, but through shared vulnerability. The revelation here is simple yet powerful. When pain meets understanding, fear loses strength. The boy, still wrapped in the coat, watched the soldier's every move. And that was another clear sign. Traumatized children don't observe out of curiosity, they observe to assess. They want to know if this adult is danger or protection. And with every passing second, the soldier silently proved he was there for the right reasons. That made the boy loosen the emotional armor he carried in his chest just a little, but enough for something new to begin growing inside him. Meanwhile, the soldier struggled to control his own emotions. The boy's presence awakened dormant memories, recollections he'd tucked away in the darkest corners of his mind. He knew he had to stay focused because this moment was about the boy, not himself. But the truth was, in trying to help the boy, he also touched wounds that had never fully healed, and that created an internal clash, a mix of empathy, pain, and responsibility he wasn't ready to feel that night. Yet he stayed steady, attentive, deciphering every micro-expression, every breath, every glance. It was like reading a wordless book, yet one with the power to stir his very soul. And right at that point, when the night seemed even quieter, something finally began shifting. Within the boy's emotional barrier, something small but significant, opening space for the next chapter of their shared journey. Right below, "I'm on this journey too." When the soldier first heard the boy's voice, it came out low, almost broken, as if forcing words through a knot in his throat. He sensed something deeper there, something that didn't match the boy's fragile appearance. It was as if each syllable carried echoes of a hidden truth, the kind no one wants to reveal, because they know that once spoken, nothing can ever be the same. The soldier stayed silent, avoiding any sudden gestures, letting time do its work. After all, some revelations aren't born from pressure, but from a rare kind of trust that only happens when two distinct pains recognize each other from afar. The boy took a deep breath, staring at the ground, kicking dust as if searching for courage there. And finally, he let it slip. He was alone, because what he'd once called home had stopped feeling safe. The absence of basic affection had become a permanent wound. The soldier felt an internal jolt as if someone had thawed memories he preferred to keep hidden in the backstage of his own mind. It was strange. This boy seemed to hold the exact key to an emotional vault the soldier thought he'd sealed years ago. And when one pain meets another, something inevitably happens. A mirror forms, showing parts no one likes to face. He realized the boy wasn't just explaining why he was there, he was revealing an entire piece of his journey, a breaking point that changed the course of every decision he'd made up to that day. It was like watching a younger version of himself, still trying to understand why some abandonments hurt more than any battle. The soldier didn't interrupt, didn't even breathe louder than necessary. He knew that certain secrets, when finally given space to be spoken, demand respect. In that instant, the boy's words gained an almost sacred weight. The boy revealed he'd run away not just from loneliness, but from the constant fear of being blamed for something he never caused. A fear that lingers in the corners of the mind, creating silent insecurities. No one sees, a dangerous feeling that if he stayed, he'd become either too invisible or too visible to those who only know how to hurt. The soldier's throat tightened. He knew that well. That kind of weight isn't carried on the shoulders, it's held in the heart, and it forever alters a child's mindset. And right then, the soldier realized the boy's revelation wasn't just about the past. It was an indirect plea for help, a search for a thread of hope, a crack in the cycle of pain. The soldier's memories began flashing fragmented scenes from a childhood he'd trained himself to forget. Yet now, they resurfaced with startling clarity, as if demanding a new posture, a new decision from him. Because sometimes, life places before us a situation that forces us to revisit the backstage of our own story, even when it tears us apart inside. With every detail the boy shared, the soldier felt the weight of their encounter grow. But it wasn't a bad weight, it was the kind that calls for responsibility. It was as if life had joined two broken paths so one could help repair the other. In that seemingly simple conversation lay deep emotional complexity, a silent weave of shared pains, unexpected revelations, wounds that still bled. The boy didn't realize it, but the soldier did. This was the moment his own story was about to change again. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the boy's revelation didn't just bring understanding, it brought contrast. It showed how a soul so young already carried an entire world of shadows within. And it also showed that when two stories touch, what was dormant awakens. The soldier began seeing this encounter as something greater than coincidence. It was as if life were trying to show him something he'd ignored for far too long, the need to face what he'd always run from. The boy's journey was the mirror of his own, only still being written, and that gave him startling clarity on how certain wounds forever change the way a child sees the world. Each of the boy's words seemed to carry premature wisdom, shaped by pain. He spoke of abandonment as one might describe the weather, with familiarity, yet with an almost imperceptible sadness underneath. And that stirred the soldier in a way he couldn't explain. It was as if this boy had access to parts of his soul he thought he'd buried forever beneath layers of discipline and silence. As the boy told his story, the soldier realized something unsettling. This wasn't just a revelation. It was a kind of emotional warning, an opportunity to break a pattern, rebuild his own mindset, and maybe, for the first time, allow himself to feel without fear of what that might awaken. Because when someone shows you their deepest pain, that offering carries an impact beyond words. It's a silent invitation to look within, find what was left behind, and perhaps choose a different path than all that once hurt you. And that's why, before moving forward, I want to ask you something simple. Comment below, this makes sense to me, just so I know the story touched you somehow, and so we can keep walking this journey together, which still has much more to reveal. The soldier stood still for a few seconds, observing the boy with an intensity he didn't even realize he had. It was as if every detail, the hunched posture, the distrustful gaze, the way he clutched his clothes as if protecting what little he had left, was saying more than the words spoken moments before. And for an instant, the soldier felt that old internal conflict rise, the struggle between acting or retreating, between getting involved or keeping the distance war had taught him. But this time, something within him refused the easier path. He knew that if he turned away now, he'd be repeating the very abandonment that once weighed so heavily on him. And that cycle needed to end somewhere. Without realizing it, he moved closer to the boy with deliberate calm, almost ritualistic, as if executing a maneuver learned in the field. Only this time, the threat wasn't an armed enemy, but the emotional fragility of someone life had thrust too soon into darkness. The soldier inhaled slowly, containing his own anxiety. It was the first time in a long while that he chose to act not from orders, protocol, or obligation, but from a clean decision born of a hidden truth that had been pushing its way out of his chest ever since their first exchanged glance. He crouched down to the boy's level, and the simple gesture made the boy take half a step back, as if unsure whether to trust. The soldier understood. Trust isn't born from promises, it's born from consistency. So he didn't try to convince with words. He offered only one simple phrase, which sounded stronger than 1,000 explanations. "You won't be alone." It was direct, honest, almost brutally true, the kind of phrase one can only speak when they truly grasp the impact abandonment has on a child's soul. The boy blinked, surprised, as if trying to calculate whether this was real or just another fleeting illusion. And that's when the soldier made the decision no one expected, not even himself. He decided to take the boy to a safe place, not to follow protocol, not to avoid future trouble, not to appear heroic, but because, for the first time in a long time, he felt his experience served not just to survive, but to protect someone who'd never stand a chance alone. And that perception brought a kind of silent, almost spiritual transformation, as if that moment redefined his mindset, rearranging internal pieces that had been out of order since the war. As they walked together, the boy still hesitant, the soldier realized how deeply responsibility touched layers of his own story. He couldn't deny it. Each step beside that small figure was, in truth, a step back into himself. He began seeing revelations he'd avoided for years. He saw that the toughness he'd built wasn't protection, it was a prison. He saw that the isolation he called strength was actually a reflection of scars he'd preferred to ignore. And somehow, intimately, this boy was breaking effortlessly walls the war had never managed to touch. The soldier led the boy to an improvised shelter, a place he knew well. He scanned the perimeter with attentive eyes, this time not from paranoia, but from care. The feeling was new, uncomfortable, yet necessary. The boy watched everything in silence, absorbing each gesture, each decision, as if trying to determine if he was truly safe. And in the moment he finally sat down without resistance, the soldier understood this was a milestone, a small sign of trust, but large enough to show their journey was only beginning. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the soldier's decision wasn't driven only by compassion. It was driven by something transforming within him, as if this encounter had activated forgotten parts of his own identity. He remembered when he was young and believed he could change the world. He remembered having dreams before the war took almost everything. And as he looked at the boy, it was as if he saw his last chance to prevent another life from being destroyed by the same pains that consumed his own. That realization shook him. It brought back memories stored in the backstage of his mind, hidden because they hurt too much to face. He recalled faces he couldn't save, promises unkept, silences that weighed more than any bomb. And in that instant, the soldier became aware that by protecting the boy, he was somehow rescuing past versions of himself. It was as if the universe had placed before him a mission he couldn't ignore, not out of duty, but because it was personal. As he watched the boy, he noticed something almost imperceptible. The child looked at him with a mix of fear and hope, and that gaze hit him harder than any explosion he'd ever faced. There was a silent, almost desperate question the boy didn't dare speak aloud. Will someone stay this time? That question echoed in the soldier like a brutal reminder of all he'd lost, but also as an opportunity to rebuild, not through strength, but through care. He felt deeply that this was the kind of decision that defines destinies, not just the boy's, but his own. He knew that from this moment on, he couldn't simply walk away and return to who he was. Something inside him had already changed. It was a revelation emerging not with noise, but with the subtlety of something that had waited years to be recognized. And as that truth surfaced, the soldier realized he was stepping into completely new emotional territory, full of risks, but also full of meaning. And that's why, before moving on, I want to ask you something simple, almost symbolic. right below I'm on this journey too. Just so I know you're walking this story with me, one that will soon unfold into even deeper layers. When the story of the soldier and the boy finally crossed the boundaries of that small improvised shelter, no one could have imagined what would happen next. It was meant to be just a quiet, almost intimate gesture, something the world would overlook. But someone saw, someone recorded it, someone shared it. And as often happens when truth carries deep emotional impact, the narrative spread with unexpected speed. Within hours, the image of the soldier protecting the boy was captured by a curious lens and began circulating through groups, pages, communities, and local newspapers. A simple scene, yet laden with meaning. A war-hardened man extending his arm to save a child who'd already seemed to lose hope. Many saw in it a symbol of the humanity slowly dissolving amid so many conflicts. The soldier learned of the reaction when officials began seeking him to confirm details. He didn't understand how something he'd done without seeking recognition had become a national topic. But perhaps that very lack of pretense is what made the gesture so powerful. The image didn't show a hero trying to be seen. It showed a broken man who chose, nonetheless, to be a shelter. And that moved people in a way speeches never could. The report gained space on a major news broadcast, and soon live transmissions began speculating about the boy's identity, the soldier's past, and what would happen next. Experts debated the psychological impact of their meeting, while emotional commentators spoke of transformation, empathy, and how seemingly small decisions can trigger something far greater than we imagine. Curiously, while the entire country talked about him, the soldier remained silent, sitting beside the boy, watching his uneasy breathing. Maybe it was precisely this contrast between the world's noise and the silence of real responsibility that made everything so meaningful. He wasn't thinking about the story's reach or its political or social repercussions. He was thinking about the fact that, for the first time in a long while, someone needed him, not because of his uniform, but because of who he was inside, even if he himself was still trying to figure that out. The boy, gradually noticing the surrounding commotion, began asking if all this was because of him. The soldier replied it wasn't. It was because of a gesture that, unintentionally, had shown the country a hidden truth. Humanity still exists where pain tries to reign. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because there's a point in this story almost no one notices. While news outlets highlighted the heroic act, the real impact happened far from cameras and discreet glances and nearly whispered words. The soldier, who'd always hidden his own scars, was beginning to see that this journey wasn't just about protecting the boy. It was about allowing something within himself to be reclaimed as well. He'd never imagined that an impulsive act guided more by intuition than reason would reveal such deep layers of his own soul. Yet that's exactly what was happening. Every person commenting online, every message of support, every national reflection on compassion reinforced an unexpected feeling. This gesture was rekindling a part of him the war had extinguished, a part that still believed in good. Meanwhile, the boy watched it all with a gaze mixing confusion and wonder. For the first time, he saw people speaking about him with kindness even without knowing him. He saw adults discussing his safety, his story, his life, something unimaginable for someone who'd grown up believing no one cared. This exposure wasn't easy for him. It stirred dormant feelings, brought back memories he tried to forget, raised questions he wasn't sure he wanted answered. But it also gave him something he never expected to feel, the sense that maybe his existence held some value. The soldier recognized this instantly. He knew the weight of invisibility and understood, watching the boy react to the attention, that he was dealing with something far more delicate than he'd imagined. And behind all this national explosion, something was unfolding backstage, something that never reached screens, but transformed both of them. From the inside out, daily coexistence, shared silence, small gestures like the soldier nudging a bottle of water toward the boy, or discreetly adjusting a blanket over him. The boy observed it all with deep attention, as if trying to decode every move, every intention. It was almost as if he were internally testing whether it was worth believing this time. The soldier, on the other hand, saw in the boy's eyes the reflection of his own pains, and that pulled him into emotional terrain he'd always avoided. But there was no more running. The slow, careful building of their bond was forcing the soldier to confront memories he'd buried because they hurt too much. Yes, the national reaction was huge, but the truth is, the soldier's gesture resonated even more deeply within himself. He began receiving calls from organizations, institutions, people offering help for the boy, spontaneous campaigns emerging. But every time someone spoke in generalities, the soldier remembered that behind this phenomenon was a real child with real fears, real needs, urgent realities, and that responsibility couldn't be outsourced to public opinion. He'd been the first to extend his hand, and that created a bond that couldn't be broken by bureaucracy or formality. It was more than physical protection. It was presence, care, commitment. And the more the country commented, the more the soldier understood his gesture had become a kind of mirror for thousands. Many saw their own pains, absences, failures. Others saw the courage they'd never had. Still others realized how small decisions can change an entire journey, not just for the receiver, but for the giver. Despite all the attention, the soldier kept his feet firmly on the ground. He knew the real transformation wasn't happening on screens, but right before him, in the eyes of a boy who was, for the first time, beginning to believe he wouldn't be left behind. And before we move to the next phase of this story, which will dive even deeper into important revelations, leave a comment below. This makes sense to me. The boy began showing up every day at the same hour, always with that distrustful look, as if he still wasn't sure he could believe in the world. And the soldier, who once walked the streets only carrying out orders, now noticed details he'd never paid attention to before. How the boy watched families laughing together. How he followed with his eyes every distant gesture of affection, as if trying to understand why that never happened to him. It was strange. This soldier, so used to handling high-risk situations, had never paused to truly see the silent dimension of a pain no one witnessed. The transformation began right there, not with words, but with a look that said, "I see you," and gradually, this boy who once shrank from touch and avoided closeness began accepting small things. A glass of milk, a simple word, a softly spoken good morning. It was as if his mindset was opening to something new, something he'd never experienced, the feeling that someone cared. And on the other side, the soldier was changing too, because every time he spoke with that boy, a hidden truth would surface from within, reminding him of who he'd been before putting on the uniform, before learning to hide his own fears. He saw himself in that child, saw the same attempt to be strong while everything inside screamed, saw the same struggle not to break when the world turned its back. And in realizing this, something inside him began to reorganize, as if this unexpected meeting were stirring the backstage of his own story. This fragile, silent boy was rewriting the destiny of a man who'd unlearned how to feel. Their transformation happened so naturally, it almost seemed the work of something greater. The boy began speaking more, sharing small fragments of his life, revealing emotions he'd held for years. And each time he trusted a bit more. The soldier felt a responsibility that went beyond his profession, a deep, internal decision not to let this child return to the darkness he'd come from. The impact was visible. The soldier's posture changed, his approach to duty changed, the way he treated people changed. It was as if this encounter had restored purpose to his heart. And the most curious part is that this journey didn't seem planned. It was as if two broken paths had crossed at the exact moment both needed something they couldn't yet name. The boy gained care, affection, direction. The soldier gained meaning, truth, revelations he never would have noticed had he kept living on autopilot. Neither was the same. The pain that once weighed so heavily now held a different meaning, as if it had been recycled to build something better, stronger, more human. They were helping each other without realizing it, healing without planning it, finding each other in a part of life where no one usually looks. And maybe that's what makes this story so powerful. The fact that change often happens in details the world ignores. It's born of silent decisions, choices that seem small, but carry an impact capable of transforming destinies. Their mindsets intertwined like two shards of the same broken glass that, when joined, form something entirely new. And that's why this story isn't just about a kind gesture, it's about two souls, recognizing each other amid chaos, despite carrying different scars. Because when someone sees your pain and doesn't run from it, something inside you reorganizes. Something finds its place. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because there's a layer to this story many people don't immediately notice. When a broken boy meets someone capable of listening, it's not just the child who changes. The adult is also confronted with truths long asleep. The soldier, who'd spent his life trying to prove strength, discovered that true strength lay in allowing himself to feel. He began revisiting memories he'd buried, started looking at himself more honestly, began understanding that the toughness he carried wasn't courage, it was self-protection. And when that realization hit, everything made sense. The boy's presence was illuminating parts of him that had been forgotten, nearly erased. The uniform that once felt so heavy now felt lighter, because he understood why he was there, not because of the internal war he carried, but because of the chance to be a bridge for someone in need. And at the same time, the boy blossomed. Once shy, withdrawn, full of defenses, he now began forming bonds, offering small smiles, risking new words. It was like watching hope reborn, hope the world had already declared lost. His transformation didn't come from grand gestures, but from consistency, from being seen, from being heard, from knowing that even without blood ties someone chose to stay. That simple, rare choice rewrote his destiny without fanfare, headlines, or glamour, only through presence. The two kept building that silent bond, day after day, as if understanding that some connections need no explanation, only to be lived. And as this happened, something greater formed between them, an invisible pact of emotional survival, a pact that neither would again be swallowed by their own pain. That revelation changed everything. It changed how the soldier walked. It changed how the boy saw the world. It changed how both understood what truly matters. And it's at this point in the story that I want you to consider something simple. The most powerful transformations rarely happen before audiences. They happen when two lives cross at the right moment and decide without words not to let go of each other. It's encounters like these that rewrite trajectories. It's stories like these that remind us what truly sustains a soul. Write below in the comments, I'm on this journey too. Peace didn't come to the soldier as a sudden flash or a cinematic revelation. It arrived slowly, almost shyly, as if knocking on the door, afraid to disturb. And when he realized it, it was already there. A quiet relief in his chest, lighter breathing, an inner silence that wasn't empty, but spacious. Because the truth is, the hardest war was never the one out there. It was always the one he fought within himself every day, without witnesses, without medals, without applause. And maybe that's why his meeting with the boy had such a deep impact, because for the first time in a long while, he understood he didn't have to fight alone. The journey they shared didn't look like a tale of triumph. It felt like real life, raw, filled with unnoticed details, scars only their carriers know. The boy, once withdrawn, now smiled more easily, and each of his smiles was a kind of silent healing for the soldier, as if proving that the decision to help had, in fact, been a way of rescuing himself. The transformation happened on both sides, but in such different ways that only an attentive observer understands. This encounter wasn't coincidence. It was an answer, a turning point, the end of an internal battle he no longer knew how to win. Isn't it curious how life works behind the scenes? How it places before us people who mirror our own wounds. The soldier began to see that the toughness he'd always worn like armor held a hidden truth. It wasn't strength, it was fear. Fear of feeling, fear of attachment, fear of losing again. But watching the boy allow himself to trust despite everything he'd endured, something inside the soldier began to disarm. It was impossible to ignore that revelation. The peace he'd sought wasn't in control, stability, or the heavy silence he carried. It was in connection, in care, in the decision to reach out a hand even when the world seems gray. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because there's a detail many miss, and it reveals much about how the most important transformations happen. True peace doesn't arrive when everything is resolved. It arrives when you understand that even amid chaos, you're not alone. The boy found someone who saw him beyond appearances, beyond the story the world told about him. And the soldier discovered his own pain could become a bridge, a purpose, a direction. Though so different, the two ended up completing each other in an improbable way. And that's precisely what makes this journey so powerful. When one cares for the other, the burden divides and what once seemed unbearable becomes possible. With each meeting, the soldier felt his insides reorganize. The anger he'd kept hidden no longer held the same strength. The guilt that haunted him began losing its grip. He realized the internal war he'd fought for years was making room for something new, something he'd never experienced with such clarity. Peace. Not the distant peace promised in motivational speeches, but real, present peace built day by day. A peace that arises when you finally understand you don't have to win everything alone. And the boy, in turn, learned to trust time, learned to trust himself, learned to breathe without fearing abandonment. With every word, every gesture, he discovered small revelations about his own strength. He realized he could be more than the world said he was, that his story wasn't condemned, that there was space to be reborn. And that was possible because someone chose to stay. Someone chose to see beyond the surface. Someone chose to listen to his silence. Their connection grew so deeply that it became impossible to tell where one's pain ended and the other's hope began. They met in a shared territory where vulnerability became courage, where fragility became a starting point, where fear was dismantled piece by piece. And that, in itself, was a kind of everyday miracle. Because, in the end, the greatest heroes aren't those in headlines, but those who choose to face their own shadows with honesty, those who rise even when no one's watching, those who transform pain into care. The story makes clear that sometimes peace doesn't arrive as a reward. It arrives as a consequence, the consequence of sincere choices, of small decisions, of gestures almost no one sees. And when it finally settles in, you realize it wasn't life standing against you, it was you who hadn't yet found someone to walk beside you. The soldier and the boy discovered this together. They discovered their strength in vulnerability, healing in encounter, beauty in silent moments where no one applauds but everything changes. And that's the point where everything within them aligned. The internal war lost ground. Peace found a home, not because everything became perfect, but because they understood healing isn't about forgetting what hurt, it's about giving it new meaning. It's not about erasing the past, but seeing it with a different mindset. And in a way, that's what makes this story so real. No one was saved in grand fashion. They simply allowed the other in, and that was enough to rewrite destinies. Comment below. This makes sense to me. If you've stayed with me this far, you can feel this story left something within you, a thought, a memory, maybe even a slight shift in perspective. And because of that, it makes sense to say something simple and true. If this kind of content does you good, if it helps you see life from angles you might miss in the daily rush, then subscribing to the channel is worthwhile. Not as an obligation, but as a way to keep walking together, always finding these spaces of pause, reflection, and presence we build here. And since you've made it to the end, tell me in the comments with this phrase: I'm with you till the end. It's light, quick, but it means a lot. It shows you were here, that you lived this journey with me, and that this message found a place in your heart. If you'd also like to leave a like, it helps more than you might think. It's a silent gesture of connection, a way to say I felt this, and it helps this kind of content reach those who need to hear it too.